Welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Club. This week, we are bringing you a very special episode that we have dubbed SUPERPOD because we have not one but 5 interviews with 5 amazing people that we met and chatted to at the Finders Keepers Creative Business Summit last week. So these are 5 short chats, and it was heartbreaking to have to cut them short because every one of them easily could have been its own full episode. But we had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Matt and Lentil from Grown and Gathered and Minimum Wines, Becca Stern from Mustard Made, artist Pete Cromer, artist and maker Shuh Lee, and Esther Sandler from Togetherness Design. So please enjoy this very special episode, and we will see you next week. So first up for today, we're interviewing Matt and Lentil and Una. If you could just chat, if you could please introduce yourselves and talk a bit about what it is that you do.
Well, we are Matt and Lentil and little Una. We initially had a project called Grown and Gathered, which is still sitting there for us and re-emerging this year a little bit more. And now we also make Minimum Wines, which is a very purpose-led wine company. Lentil's also doing mindset coaching now, and I also make wine over in Italy for a project called Un Po that we have going over there. So we're based in Berlin now and move between Berlin and Australia for the harvest and Italy for the harvest, and we move around.
Yeah. To me that sounds super exciting. I imagine there are parts of it that are and parts of it that are just like the constant change and uncertainty might get a bit exhausting. But
adding a 9 months to the migrations is interesting.
Was
this Una's first international flight?
Yeah.
And how did it go?
It was her first flight, full stops, and we really threw her into...
It was like a Berlin house party for 24 hours.
We just told her it was a party and she had so much fun.
So to the idea of movement and the fact that your work is so seasonal and relates to land and the earth, could you talk a bit about what it means to have a profession and careers, plural, that relate to land?
Yes, it's a great question.
You want Ducky?
Matt might begin.
okay. Oh, sorry, Una. That's all right.
Have a moment. She's like, such a big question.
Yeah.
She's like,
This is too hard to fit this in.
Early.
Maybe she felt my anxiety in that.
Or maybe she was like confused by it. Like maybe for a baby, she's like, how could you as an animal possibly question our relation to land?
Exactly. She's all over it. It's a very good question, though. And for us, well, with Grown and Gathered, we were so tied to the land. It was almost like in a very modern world where we have ambitions and different things and different ideas of movement, also having the farm was intense. It was an intense thing that we had to be really tied to always. And so now having these businesses that speak to land and speak to our relationship to land and allow us to give back to land a lot, but in a less rooted way, has been super nice as well. And feels a little bit like a going back even further, like being able to move around is something that humans have always done. So it's nice to feel less tied to a specific area and more in this zone of moving between grounds in a way for us. We don't just travel. We have very specific places that we go to, and we have little communities in all of those places. And I think to all those communities we're a little bit strange because we do move so freely, but we're also very grounded in each of those places. So it's nice. It feels very natural for us. It's just a lot harder now with baby, although she actually doesn't seem to care too much.
Yeah. Has that always been a thing for you both? Like even before this chapter, have you as people like kind of camped or travelled or has movement been part of your lives and practices?
Yeah, I think so. I think for both of us. We met here, Lentil's from Cairns and then Brisbane, and we met here in Melbourne, so she'd been moving around. And she'd also done a lot of travelling. I've done a lot of travelling around the world, a lot of very down-home travelling, overland across a lot of countries. So, it's always definitely been a thing for us. Yeah.
And so you touched on it a little bit, saying that you've sort of got these little communities in the different places that you live. What's the sort of role of community been, and how have you gone about finding that in places that maybe you're a bit more transient in, rather than being sort of entrenched in like you might be if you spent your whole life living in the one city?
Yeah, I'm just to clarify, I'm answering lots of these questions because Lentil's standing up and doing it now.
there will be videos, so those who will be watching will understand.
I got this. I think for us, well, it was interesting actually. When we moved over to Italy initially, to Sardinia, we moved into a very, very small, pretty traditional village, and everyone was like, "Who are you? This is amazing. You're staying, right?" And like, just because they were shocked that they have a lot of tourists come through. But we were like, no, we're buying a house, we're staying here, this is what's happening. And actually, the pandemic really threw that plan out quite a lot, because we came back for the harvest, which was meant to be for 2 months, and then we got stuck here for most of the year in 2020. And when we went back, it had kind of eroded this sense of trust that we'd built with that community, because they just thought maybe you're just like everyone else. And so that was one of the sort of driving forces why we went over to Berlin, to take a break from that energy initially, which has healed now. And I think post-pandemic, everything's eased a little bit. But it really showed out that where you were for something so epic as that, it does have an effect on, you go through these experiences together as community.
Yeah.
And so for us, we have to be quite conscious, I think, of when we move between our spaces, of making sure we're also maintaining connections and keeping a bit of integrity about those communities that we do move through, so that it's not just we move away and forget, and then we're in the other place and we forget.
Yeah.
It's a kind of, it adds a lot. It is kind of maintaining these three spaces for us, but we love it because it means we have this expansive group of humans that love us and we love. So, yeah, it works.
It's such a interesting, I mean, it's going to sound ridiculous. I've never thought of it in terms like that. And I think maybe it's also speaking to you, and because you've got the farming side of it, like you kind of, that feels obvious in terms of if it was land and if you were cultivating land and a crop, it's like you don't just like do the work and fuck off.
Yeah.
You tend to it, and it's the you do physical labor, and with humans you do the emotional work of tending to those relationships, and you don't just get to like walk out and come back and expect things.
Can I use
that? It's yours. Queen of the metaphor over here.
It's exactly right. It's exactly how it works, and I think we weren't quite as aware. It's been 5 years now that we've been doing this sort of moving around, because it was 5 years before that just in one place, in one community. And I wouldn't say that one place that we stayed in for 5 years made it a stronger community. So we can maintain the strength, and possibly even more so with a bit of space sometimes. A bit of space can be good in relationships. Yeah. And so as long as we're upholding all those connections, it all seems to work.
It is quite a bit of extra stuff, and obviously well worth it. But when I think of like, sometimes it takes me 2 weeks to reply back to like my best friend who's sending a very straightforward message. So the idea of doing all of that, I imagine the effort is equal to the reward. Yeah. But easy. You guys gave a talk at Creative Mornings many years ago, maybe in 2016, I think. Yeah. And I was graphic recording there at the time. So I went back through my archives this morning to find the illustration that I'd drawn for your...
It was wonderful. That was you.
I have a copy of it here somewhere. I put it in my bag, so I'll show you.
You're amazing.
Now I look back at it because
what are you doing this for?
Why can't you illustrate that?
It's that horrible thing though. It was like 7 years ago. So now I look at it, I'm like, oh God, cringe.
Yeah.
No, it's beautiful.
We still love it. So.
Oh, good.
I'm sure we have that saved somewhere.
I didn't bring it up just to get compliments, but thank you. Although I do love it. But there are a few things that stood out for me that I thought were really beautiful and really in line with what we like to talk about a lot on the podcast, but also with the sort of ideas behind the Creative Business Summit. So a few of the little takeaways that I'd written down from you guys was, one was saying, just try it even once. Don't be afraid to fuck up, and talk to strangers.
Wrote a song about that.
Which I think are excellent pieces of advice. I'm interested to know now what, sort of 7 years along, those sort of points are still things that you
live by and that are still sort of serving you in your business?
I think so. I think that's why we ended up in Berlin, let alone Italy, let alone moving off the farm to an Australian village before that. I don't think we've been able to make any of these choices without having that, I guess, trust in our hearts, in these sort of inclinations or intuitions that we were having at different points. It does feel like, talking to strangers you don't move to new places and try and set up new communities unless you're open to meeting new people and to engaging with others and to acknowledging that, you're not an island in the world. And that's very much a big philosophy of ours, the way we operate in business as well.
I think post-pandemic, it's even more relevant than ever, actually.
Yeah.
I have creative friends who are brilliant, and we go out and they say to me, I don't know how to talk to somebody, just randomly without an app or without maybe an email, because for so long, so many people haven't been talking to strangers. So I think maybe it's even more relevant now.
Yeah. And we do feel this year, 2023 is going to be an opening, I think, away from that feeling of things have been very closed for years now. And let's say the last 2-3 years have been this very much a sense of keeping distance, and not just in the physical, this is what distance you're meant to keep, but very much people's minds have turned inward because of that, I think. And it's been interesting to watch that physicality manifest in the way people think. And so I think this year is going to be a big opening, a big sense of let's do stuff together, and let's stop being so individual again. But we probably couldn't have had that talk or this talk a year ago even, because it just would feel stupid to say.
Well, even ideas of distance and the fact that you move so much, like that your life is this constant sort of flux between like physical distance and emotional distance. And I think it would you'd really notice the difference in terms of that you do move around a lot, but can cultivate closeness even like across massive physical distances. But I'm so curious. I'm very selfish. I have so many questions. So this is a bit of a left turn, but Lentil, you've got your this. I don't want to call it a side project because that implies that it's not the main thing. But or how would you describe it? But it's a, you said mindset coaching.
Yeah. So I call it integrative practitioner. And if I was in Germany, I would say I'm a therapist. And if I'm in Australia, I say I'm a mindset coach. So this is the challenge of working across countries. So yes, I'm doing coaching, so mindset coaching, and also a type of practice called internal family systems.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, great.
Hilariously, Alice and I see the same psychologist,
okay.
so now we get to refer to her as our psychologist.
And she's very big on it.
Okay. Great, that's amazing that you know of this practice. Yeah, so I integrate all of that into coaching, basically.
Amazing.
How have you found, because that might seem from the outside like quite a different field to be playing in from what has gotten you both to where you are.
Yeah.
How does it work for you balancing these different parts of yourself, and how did you find, like, when did you know it was time to expand somewhere new?
Yeah, firstly, I like your use of parts in there. Very, very well done. And to answer your question, I don't think that, well, for me, they're not separate. And that has been and is currently one of the biggest challenges I'm having is helping others to understand actually how I feel business and creativity is absolutely related with, say, mindset coaching and integrative practice. I don't know if we can really stand in the world authentically in a business or in a creative sense if we haven't yet found that in ourselves. So yeah, that's how I see them as connected.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm really interested with your coaching or therapizing, or depending on where we are. What's the difference that you see between the different locations that you work in? Is like in terms of the problems that people are coming to you with, or your approach to how you deal with people? Does that change quite a bit culturally depending on where you are?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It does. Of course, where we're from has an impact culturally and socially. So that's definitely something that, is of note for the practice. And it does change. What's important to people is often the thing I notice the most. That's, what's driving them to come and arrive with me in the first place, and partner is probably the main difference.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So linking to the idea of sort of different values and knowing your values for yourself, and also so that you can work and live effectively and healthily and happily with other people. I was wondering, and this might be too personal, so obviously only answer to the extent that you're comfortable, but I think more and more people are drawn to the idea of a lifestyle of movement to varying degrees. And could you speak to how that works in a partnership and now as a family? Because I would imagine that there's the Instagram version of that, which is like, we're all in a van and then we go surfing and then we do like 2 hours of emails and then that's it. And then there's the actual reality of like relationship, like life is tough enough in one place with an anchor, but like how does movement factor into your relationship? How do you think about it? What would you offer other people looking to do something similar?
I'm like, that's what mindset coaching is.
So contact Lentil.
But from my side, I can answer that. I do really use a lot of those tools to function. I probably bring a lot of the kind of organization and breaking things down and making sure that everyone's needs are being met, and that's probably my part.
Or at least everyone's needs but your own.
At times, yeah. What's the saying? I said the painter's house is always the house that's unpainted.
Never painted.
Yeah. But
that's right. No, I think being organised is critical, but we're very open communicators, and that's been, I guess, we've been through a lot of very hard times in the last 10 years now, but because we've communicated through those, we're still here and thriving, and travel just is that, or movement between places is that, and we're constantly reassessing things. I'll talk a little bit about this at the summit later. It's just the tools that we use for our business are really the tools that we use for our life, and it's not just being organised, but it's about actually assessing, and we effectively write our own little life manifesto over and over and over again, and it's happening less and less. When we were first together, we'd do it almost more than once a year because things were just like really rapidly developing, but then now things are settling down, and we just have very clear ways that we want to live, and we're not going to get fucked around by someone else's ideas of what we should or shouldn't do. And even more so with Una now, we just want her, we feel like she joined us. Like she was like, hey, I like that, let's be a part of that. And so we're going to make sure we don't change our life because she's come along, because that'd be really disappointing if you were like, I want to join that, and then they change everything just for you, and you're like, hang on, I was trying to join you. So for us, it's about keeping the kind of integrity of how we live our life ongoingly, and it's just a matter of listening to everyone's needs. Like we get exhausted and we need to stop sometimes, and we take too much on, and we both do that, so we need to check each other, and it's a lot of support.
And I think overall it's really having a willingness to grow as a human, and to be vulnerable in that. We are all always growing and always changing, and with that, of course, comes other things like loss, so it's not a simple thing, growth, but I think the willingness to do it is overall the way.
Yeah, and to keep, to make sure that you're growing in the same direction
Yeah.
together as a
Well, not even growing in the same direction, just not growing so far apart that you can't bridge that. So it's sort of...
Yes, sure.
Because allowing
good
each
point.
other to grow, and we've changed so much, both of us, in the last 10 years through the different experiences we've put each other through and we've gone through together.
Yeah.
And obviously having a child's one thing, but moving is one thing, and there's been illness, there's been stress, there's been all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it changes you, and then you move cities and you change, and you're allowed to express yourself differently in Berlin than you can in Melbourne and that you can in Italy. And so we are trying to allow each other to be new amongst all of that, and we still love and like each other both. And so we stay together.
Maybe that's also checking in. Do I still
it,
like you? Maybe that's the key question that you can ask yourselves in a partnership all the time.
And to be able to say, I don't really like that part that's developing. Let's work on that together.
I love that.
Very diplomatic.
How you said allowing each other to be new. I think that
is gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm going to hold on to that little fragment of words. It's very beautiful, and I think it's such a powerful practice to commit to.
I could keep talking to both of you for hours, and I'm bummed that we have to stop, but we've stolen you away from your sound check, which we should probably go and let you do at some point.
Amazing.
But Matt and Lentil and Una, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you around for the rest of the day as well, and enjoy being at the summit, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thank you
for having
both so
us.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, Una.
All right, well, welcome Becca Stern from Mustard Made. We're so happy to be hanging out with you today at the Creative Business Summit. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I am Becca. I'm the co-founder and creative director of Mustard, where we sell colourful lockers for home, work and play.
Love it. And they are absolutely gorgeous. And it's exactly the type of thing that makes me very, very excited. Like, what could I don't feel like I need it, but maybe I do need it.
I will warn you that from our experience, lockers are very addictive. Once you get one, you're like, wow, you can fit so much stuff in here, and it looks so nice from the outside, so satisfying. Then often people come back for more.
Yeah.
I had a heightened version of this experience because obviously in preparing for this talk, we're looking at your work and the designs, and this kind of valuing the idea of craft and beautiful objects that are also functional. And then on the sort of converse of that side, I needed to go just pick up some bits from IKEA this weekend. And I think just like it really brought home the kind of like other extreme of just objects that feel completely soulless. So could you talk about how you found your way into making these objects and kind of and what that has meant to you?
It's funny, my sister and I, so my sister's my co-founder. She lives in London, and we actually grew up going to IKEA for fun. That's what we did at the weekend. We would go there and spend, no joke, 8 hours just walking around and like pretend buying stuff. That was our idea of fun. I definitely have like a big connection with that idea of flat pack and creating things for yourself and accessibility of good design. So I think that, that's kind of some of the stuff that I suppose I've taken from my early childhood experiences of wandering around IKEA and getting lost. I think that the journey that we have been on really started with a want for something that was practical for my own home. So I have an old home, I have kids, and I had no storage. Nothing, not a single cupboard was built in to the home that I live in. So that was kind of really where it began, was just this really practical need. And then I sort of mixed that in with this strange and peculiar love that I had for rusty old lockers that I had found on the side of the road. Funnily enough, I actually saw one on the same street last week and took a photo and was like,
like a full circle.
Yeah, it was like exactly where I began was this particular locker in this street right near my current office, and just how it all kind of came back to that moment of seeing this abandoned, rusty, kind of beautiful but totally now impractical object because it didn't lock, it was kind of wonky, and it had no shelves inside, so it was basically just a big hole when you open the door, which isn't very helpful when you have loads of like small things, toys and clothes and things you need to hide. So yeah, kind of really that was where the idea for lockers came from.
And did you take that locker and restore, or that's just what sparked the idea that this was a thing you wanted to do?
You betcha. Yep. I figured out how to get that locker home, and I still have it in my house now.
Oh, amazing.
Yep. And it was like green on one side and pink on the other, which became two of our first kind of colours that we launched with, was inspired by this particular locker. And I put some little plywood shelves inside. Still doesn't lock, or the door doesn't shut properly, but I just love it.
Yeah.
I genuinely have this kind of affection for the stories that it has to tell, and the layers of paint, and the way that metal kind of ages gracefully. You know, it's not like cheap wooden stuff, or like, you know, the hollow furniture where it's like a veneer on the outside, but if it gets scratched, there's nothing you can do about it. It's, you know, you can't repair it, whereas something like metal, these like dings and scratches become part of the character.
And it feels more honest because the material is not pretending that it's something else. Like with the veneers, I feel like just inherently on like an existential level, it makes me feel weird because I'm like, it's pretending it's something that's not wood pretending to be wood, or it's something that's not like another metal pretending to be metal. I'm like, it's just lies, and on some, I don't know, on like some deep level, I'm like, my brain feels weird about this. Like, what the fuck is anything?
I completely relate to that. Yeah, I very much like my design as a sort of core principle of design. I think you should let a thing be what it is. Yeah. You know, let it tell its truth. If it's metal, let it look like metal and feel like metal and sound like metal. And yeah, so I think that's kind of why I was drawn to metal furniture. And and lo and behold, here I am. I also used to have a business making jewelry and also working with vintage cutlery. So coincidentally, did these two kind of weird, unrelated things at the same time that were both made of metal. Yeah. And I look back now and I can see the connection, but I didn't always know that at the time.
Yeah, it's funny how you can see though, like the journey in hindsight looks quite clear and it makes a lot of sense. But at the time, you're like, I don't know, I'm just following rabbits down holes and seeing
totally.
I'm interested in how you work together with your sister, because I'd read that that one of your main drivers wanting to start something together is to be able to spend time together, which I love and I understand. That's why we started a podcast. So a few sort of bits that I'm interested in, like one, just the dynamic of working with a family member and what that feels like, and how you manage the business side and the personal side, as well as how you collaborate cross-country, her being in the UK and you in Australia, and how that works at a practical level.
Yeah, so it was very much something that we talked about for years. Our original idea that we wanted to do for a long time was to start a bra company for people with big cups and small backs. That was going to be our niche. Now there's a few more options out there, thankfully, but it was, we kind of like, we always talked about this for years and it never really went anywhere.
It's like a different kind of storage solution.
Practical and pretty, totally. And maybe that's a theme.
Thread,
stuff that's, it has value and meaning, but it's also functional. Yeah. So maybe, who knows, next chapter in my life. But so we talked about this for many years, and I've now lived in Australia for 11 years, and at the time that was about halfway through that. And before that, Jess and I we grew up together, but then in our teenage years, we lived apart. She lived with my dad and I lived with my mum. And then I kind of went off to uni and traveled and moved to Australia. So there was pretty much, our whole kind of growing up in adult life, we weren't actually living together, but we were very much each other's person. And, when we really needed each other, we were always there for each other. And I guess we kind of had this understanding that life would go on and we might, not spend as much time together, and flying home to England might become less of a priority. So when I had my second son, Ellis, she came over to Australia and we were like, no, we should really do this. Like, if we want to stay close and we want to spend time with each other, we should start a business. Like, that's a great idea. What could possibly go wrong? I think that it was really that emotional connection that we had to each other that was the reason that we wanted to start it. And I would say that's the reason why it works, because we really have each other's best interests at heart. And I think that's different from somebody that you've kind of met at work. Like we started this together, we grew it together, and we have the same kind of drive and belief in the business as each other. And that's kind of, I guess, the thing that we really have in common. And then I would say we have a lot that is different. So I am more I sort of do the creative and marketing side, and she's a lot more practical. She's really great with people. She can make anyone do anything and they'll love her at the end of it.
May I go into business with her, please?
She just has this way of really building connections with people, which is beautiful. And I think we just have really different strengths and skills. And then being really close emotionally but very far apart physically is good when you're sisters. It's easy. Like if we're annoyed at each other, there's a lot of distance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of space. There's a lot of cooling off periods if it's needed. So I think, that kind of helps on a practical level. And then, just a lot of mornings and nighttime calls. And for us over the last kind of year or so, she, since she became a mum, she was always the one that was very flexible for me because I was the mum. And now she's a mum too, and the hours has become a lot more tricky. So whereas we would kind of just wake up and call each other for like an hour chat when it suited one of us, now it's like trying to find those windows of time across the time zones where one of us is in their pajamas because it's morning and one's in their pajamas because it's nighttime. So it doesn't really work for either of us, and got to get the kids to sleep or get the kids to school or, so I think that's definitely become more challenging. So we're just working on a bit more of a structure for that to make sure that it's actually something that's sustainable for us and our families, and bit of the old work-life balance.
Yeah. And was that, I imagine, during like the COVID years that potentially could have maybe worked in your favour somewhat, working in that way. But how did that impact you, like either how you work or your business, or was it a big kind of thing in your... I mean, it was a big thing in all our fucking lives. Did a global pandemic have any effect on you whatsoever?
I mean, on a personal level, I live in Newcastle in Australia, so things were a lot less extreme, I would say, than other places. Yeah. And I definitely saw, what she was going through in London and the intensity of those lockdowns and the loneliness and the challenges. And I think she's really, she said to me this year that January was the first time in years she's felt like herself. And I think that kind of the long-term impact of that is very much, we're not over it. We're still working through that stuff. So I think that's important to acknowledge. But not being able to see each other, like I think that the year 2020, we had 5 trips booked together. The first one, she was actually in Australia to start the year when it was all kicking off. Then we were going to fly from here to China. And that was the week everything closed. And we were like, what's the worst that could happen? We might catch a cold. Like, is that all it is? And, we could have been stuck there for 3 years. Who knows? So thankfully we didn't go there. And then we had a family trip to Italy with my dad's 60th birthday. And then we had a work trip to America planned. So it was kind of the 3.
I'm so sorry.
And going to England as well. So, it was like we had these 5 opportunities to hang out together. We're like, this is what we've dreamed of, being able to spend time together. And then one by one, we crossed each one off the list as, Italy went down, America went down. China obviously came first. So
you're like, I guess we'll do another trivia night on Zoom.
I did do some family fun games instead. And that was really tough, not being able to see each other. And I think from a work point of view, our manufacturer is in China, so there was a lot of periods where they were closed and freight was very difficult. And I think just the stress of the unknown all the time. And it just really got to the point where I was like, we just got to laugh. What else can we do? Literally everything has gone wrong that could have gone wrong. So let's just start to expect that. And not be surprised when surprises happen. We're just going to build that in. We're going to put massive buffers. We're going to set our expectations really low. We're going to, we used to do pre-orders on products. We totally stopped doing that because it just didn't feel right for our customers to, if we couldn't guarantee when it was going to arrive, we didn't want to take their money and let them be funding our business choices. So that was a big sort of change that we made. And I think just getting more comfortable with the unknown, which... for me personally, I'm quite cool with that. Like that's my way of being. But I think when you're running a business and you have a team, there has to be a balance because you have to plan and think ahead, and things don't happen if you don't make them happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely been a challenge, and I think we've come out of it really proud that we have. Thrived. Maybe, you know, we've survived, but we've come out of it a better, bigger, stronger, and more confident business. And we've definitely watched a lot of businesses, particularly in the last year, that haven't made it. And yeah, certainly tough times are still ahead. So yeah, gathering the energy for that.
Yeah.
How do you, so sort of expanding on the idea of mindset and being in business with someone you love and creating this business with someone you love as a way that you get to do a creative thing, you get to make creative things in the world and also spend time together. How do you manage the tensions, or maybe tension is the wrong word to use. How do you manage the different, those kind of different energies of being a business partner and a sister, and like, how do you show up as each one? Do you have designated time? You're like, this is a business call, no sister stuff, or are they just completely intertwined?
Well, I would add to that another layer of complexity that now both of our husbands work for the business. So there's now this kind of, yeah, so through 2020, both of them joined the business, and I honestly could not imagine Mustard without them now. Like it's been amazing, but now you've got, husband and wife relationships, you've got sisters, you've got, siblings-in-law.
How do you manage those dynamics?
There's a lot of,
because that could be your superpower, but that is also, you need to be so intentional around communication, power dynamics, baggage, other complexities. Like, how do you do that?
And I would say it's a work in progress. I don't have any easy answers to that, except that one of the things that we've been working on, Jess and her husband Mark have just spent 5 weeks over in Australia. They just went home last week. And one of the really, sounds so obvious, but it was really helpful things that we did was to write our own job descriptions and, really start to hone in on what it is that we're good at, we enjoy, what our skills are, and what our unique section of the business is that we are going to get to make decisions on and own. Because, when often, like say if we weren't working together, you'd go home and you'd talk to your partner, or you might talk to your sister or your friend about these decisions. And so there's always a lot of we want everyone on board and we want to chat things through, but then it can be hard to know who gets to make that final decision and, execute on it and really, take ownership of a particular subject or project or something like that. So I think that was
it's a great idea.
Again, it sounds obvious, but and we give everyone else, that sense of knowing what their job is, but we didn't really have it ourselves. And it was pretty obvious when we started writing. And there's very little crossover. It's literally you can divide the business in quarters and we get a quarter each, and it works beautifully. We just hadn't ever put pen to paper and really defined that. So hopefully moving forward, that will give us that little bit of structure that we need. I think it's always, speaking about creativity, it's this balance between the structure and the want for freedom is my personal challenge.
Yes.
And I want to be free, but I also can see that having a bit of structure around things is almost what sets you free.
Absolutely. That gives you the safety to be able to go and play and, the bits that you can add on to around that structure or move it around, but you need to be tethered to something or you're just floating into the ether.
Yeah, it's kind of like knowing your medium, or knowing your material or knowing the canvas size. And then within that you can do whatever the hell you like. But if you don't know that, where do you even begin? So I think that's a big focus for this year, is kind of really building in some processes and structures so that then we can have fun and feel good about it and not feel scared or unsure.
And I think that clarity is something, particularly in very small businesses or working with family, that can often be overlooked. It's we know what we're doing. We don't have to sit down and do this. And you say, it might sound obvious, but I think a lot of the time it isn't actually, because we work on assumptions that I know what I'm doing and they know what they're doing, but that's like one of the most dangerous things.
I know.
That you
And
can
like
do.
as we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, we're 100% doing this exercise. Like
Yeah.
it's like we're definitely gonna. It's often those simple things. Yeah, just like and the idea of writing it yourself, I
Yeah.
think is like you're connecting to, you're putting in your words what you've signed up for, what you own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And then I think it's about having the opportunity and taking the opportunity that we've literally given ourselves to create the jobs that we want.
Yeah.
yes.
We get to write that job description. We get to define it. And if you don't do that, you can end up doing a lot of things in the business that aren't your strong points, you don't enjoy, you don't have a passion for, and then you feel drained and wonder why. So I think as a small business owner, like there's a lot of hard things about it. And if you don't take the good things, which is that you get the freedom, that you design your own role, if you don't take those opportunities, then you end up with a lot of the bad stuff. And
Beck, we could keep talking to you forever, but I think that's a perfect place to end our chat today on. Thank you so much for making the time
Thank you,
to sit down and
Becca.
chat with us. Good luck for the rest of the day, and we'll see you around.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
That was so much
Becca.
fun.
So next up, we have Pete. Pete, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and talk a bit about your practice and what you do.
I'm Pete Cromer. I'm an Australian artist. I do a lot of collage, resin sculptures, and really focus on Australian wildlife because I love it.
Yay. Well, I was so fucking excited to see your name on the lineup, Pete, because I'm very much a genuine fangirl. I've got a bunch of your work in my home.
Unreal.
I bought it as gifts for heaps of people.
you.
I love it. So I was
She's
just
been
like,
playing
oh my
it so
God.
cool the whole point until now.
Well, lovely to meet you both. So, and then thank you so much. That's awesome.
It's such a pleasure. I'm really interested to know a little bit about, sort of how you got started and about the subject matter, and because you focus a lot on Australian wildlife and Australian birds. And has that been something that you've always loved? Was that always your subject matter?
Yeah, like birds in particular, like especially like colour. I'm attracted to colour and bird personalities. They're cheeky, they're funny, they're wild. Like I love observing them. They're just great. But how it all started, like I've grew up, always wanted to be an artist, and education told me that you'll be poor, so don't be an artist, but do something else. So, always wanted to be in the creative area. So I studied graphic design, played in the graphic design field for about 10 years, and worked my way up to management director level, which was great. But I was manager director. I wasn't being creative. I was telling people
Yeah.
what to do. There's these things called KPIs, which I don't like. So, I'm kind of like, look, I've done it. I was like, about to turn 30. I'm kind of like, I can't. This is not sustainable for me. I'm essentially not happy. I'm not being creative. So, the dream of that work-life balance of I'll get home and paint and do things, that just basically got diminished. So, I woke up one day and was like, I'm quitting, and I'm gonna go out on my own. I've got all this creativity, all these ideas in my head. I'm just gonna pursue it and see where it takes me. If it doesn't work, I'll just get another job. But I have, I'm here now, and this is a good decade later. So that's how it all kind of started.
How much of a plan did you or
None.
didn't you have?
No plan.
No further questions.
A job interview. Where do you see yourself in 5
Yeah.
years? Like, I kind of go, well, I don't know. Like, no one knows. Like, there's no. Part of the experience is letting things happen organically, and I've now in a position where I've got staff, and I never imagined that. I never planned for that. Part of me is kind of second guessing why I've done it, but it adds an extra layer of difficulty from a business point of view. But it's that I had no plan. I've just let things go, grow naturally, organically, and enjoyed the process of it. I've learned along the way rather than doing a course of how to get to. I just find this way more exciting than a plan.
Did you have a sense of your work at that stage? So you're like 30 years old, you're going to leave the kind of corporate creative stream. Did you know, say your first day in the studio, did you know what your work looked like? Did you have a sense of your style? Or,
Yeah.
okay.
I've always had my style. And that's when I worked at other places, I would pitch ideas with my style, and they'd be like, ooh, no, it's not commercial, it's not trendy, it's not anything. So it'll just be bin. So I learned like kind of early on into my career that, you know, keep that to yourself, like keep it for myself and, you know, answer the brief as per the client. Like that's the way to, you know, and just keep your stuff to yourself. And that's what I did. So it's like, it's been kind of, but I left it trapped in my head for years. And when you leave things trapped in your head for years, it kind of starts haunting you. And this is where I started to get that conflict of, I've got all these things that I need to get out, but I'm in this career position. So I just made the choice to act on, all the creativeness in my head. So that style was always there. It's just, I didn't unlock it for years.
Is there a bit of sort of quiet satisfaction that's there being for people who might have thought that style wasn't like commercially viable? You're like, ha, suck it. Look at me now, motherfuckers.
It's funny because some of them are like, hey, Pete, let's collab. It's like, we're now. I don't know. Like, it depends. Like, because when you're working, when you've got clients and things, it's that, a lot of people work off trends or,
Yeah,
so
it's not actually
safe
personal in that way.
Yeah, they play in the safe space. So, like,
Yeah.
if you're putting things on product, people need, they're going to make more educated guesses that, the market's going to be happy with this and we're going to make money from it. So a new design that no one's seen before, they're going to go, that's a risk. So, no. But now, obviously, I've gone out, done my own thing, built my name, built my style. It's proven itself. Like, so now, then it's kind of like, then they kind of come back and go, you're popular, so let's talk. So, look, it's an educated guess, I suppose. So, but for me, it's being true to yourself.
I love the idea when you were speaking earlier of an idea that's in your head. If you don't release it, it kind of is like bouncing off the walls and they're getting stronger and needing some kind of outlet. And given I've got in my mind like the beautiful, very coloured birds that you create, and I'm just imagining this flock of rainbow birds inside your skull, just like a tornado of budgies just in there, just screaming to be let out.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, like my early days were the birds, and now I'm kind of moving into other things. But like they strike and they just rattle around, and I can write it on a piece of paper, but writing it on a piece of paper is only kind of one step. Like I've got to fulfill it and kind of like, bring it to reality. One problem with it all though is I kind of call myself a bit of Mr. 80%. I get 80% through something and then I get another idea. So I get this crossroads of I want to start something new because that's exciting, but I have to finish something off, which is boring.
I find this incredibly relatable, Pete. You're talking to the right gal.
We're both like, so what's the solution to that?
I'm aware of it. Can I fix it? I don't know. Maybe that's the way I'm wired. Maybe that's how some people are wired, where we'd like to start things and we're not so inspired by the end. We're more inspired by the start. So, yeah.
And is that something, since your business has scaled, are you kind of able to outsource that last 20% so you can keep doing the nice, fun, sparkly things?
Absolutely.
The dream, living the dream.
Absolutely. And it took years to kind of recognise, and also from a creative point of view, I'm a control freak. So I wear that badge, and I'm sure a lot of other creative people go, I'm a control freak too. And so it was just like that letting go. It's for me that learning of, to let go and trust others to be able to, help and support you. So that took a bit to get used to, but I'm getting there or got there.
Have there been any resources that you've used, kind of this self-awareness that's been part of your creative and professional journey? Like, have there been resources that you can recommend or I don't know, books or places you've learned this, or is it literally just been paying your own school fees, kind of fucking up and learning from your fuck ups?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the fuck up, of like doing something, get an idea, explore. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but you've learned and then you kind of reevaluate and kind of go, well, do I try again or do I park it? And I've got so many failed experiments, and I've got some resin budgies, and I was just like, with resin, don't put like kind of like water-based acrylics like mixed with resin because it kind of explodes. So, but I'm going to try anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just like now I've ruined my molds and everything, and I've got to start from scratch again. So I'm a big fan of experimenting because I love it, and I love surprise outcomes. Sometimes they're amazing, but most times they're disappointing. So it's self-taught. And I'll get an idea and it's like, oh, how do I do it? Let's go to YouTube. Let's Google it. Let's go on forums. Let's ask people. There's so much information out there. Like you can not only just research it, but ask people in the industries and things like that. And vice versa, people can come to me and ask me about, I'm thinking about doing this. How did you go with it? And I'll be like, stay clear of it. And people will tell me, stay clear, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's just me. I'll see a fire. Someone says, don't touch it. It's hot. I'm going to touch it.
He runs with scissors, motherfuckers. He's a dangerous man. So that, like, leaving that room for experimenting, playing, seeing what's different, is that something that you intentionally carve out time to do in your day, or it's just it's so part of who you are that it's just part of your process?
I want to say yes, but I mean that because I'm a business, so there's business needs. So there's this. I try to. I think it's like going back to the idea when it haunts me. If it's got to the point where it's not going away, it's just kind of like, everything else can wait. I need to just see this through to kind of experiment and see what happens. But I can't say that I delegate certain time for the experimenting. It's kind of goes back to the organic nature of how I work as well. But sometimes, or if I'm stressed or I've got too much on, I shut down. I don't. So it's just like I'm overwhelmed. I shut down, and then because I'm shut down, I'm like I'm useless to do all the things I need to do today. So maybe I'll go and experiment because I don't need to do it. But I know I'm not going to be productive in any other area. So at least I can enjoy and, go on from there.
And building from that, this idea, because you work across mediums. You've got the collages, you've got the actual sort of print designs that you're making, and then you've got the resin sculptures. How do those relate to each other, and how do they start? Is there one sketchbook where you're keeping those ideas? Is there like is there a million? Does it look like a beautiful?
It's a paper. Paper, fine. I got an idea. I need to just sketch and I'll put it on something. So there's no book. It would be great if I had a book, but no. I think I've got books and they might have 2 pages. It's
like that classic, buy a beautiful moleskin and then never write anything.
Good intentions. I was one of those students. Started the school year, perfect handwriting. Within 2 days, everything just went to shit. It was like my books were just like, ugh. And I think that's the thing. I've got these journals and they're 2 pages that have, sketches and intentions, but it's just like when I go on holidays, I want to go take my sketchbook and I'm going to do things, and I get back and it's still in the suitcase because I haven't done anything with it. So no, I've just got bits of paper with ideas and sketches, and it's just kind of, it's more scribble jotty, I think is probably the best way. Like, when you used to, have phone calls and the phone was actually connected to the wall and you'd have the jot pad and you'd kind of just doodle and scribble. That's kind of my angle to go about it, yeah.
I find this very validating, Pete, because I have in mind, at school we had to have the visual journals or whatever you call them. I assumed that everyone like me didn't do that and just scribbled on bits and then submitted it. Just did it to submit it after the fact, to be I guess this is what I would have written if I was making up a thing. But I'm much more haphazard with how I collect my ideas, but always feeling like I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what? For me, it's very similar to my taxes. When I go to the accountant with the receipts, it's just a whole bunch of receipts. That's kind of, there it is. Not organised. There it is.
It's there. Yeah, the content is there. We've got enough.
Yeah.
We've got what we need.
Yeah.
But it's not structured, but it's there.
But it's there. Yeah.
It's not structured, but it works.
Yeah,
I'd like to think I'm organised chaos. I know where everything is. I know how it works. I'm comfortable with that. Whereas my partner who works with me, he's ex-chef, he's ex-warehouse manager. He's organised. Everything in its right spot. So from a working relationship, we're very well balanced, I suppose, in that way. He knows my space and not to interfere because he knows I know what's in my mess, where everything else is organised. Like all the things that we dispatch, like on having an online business, like everything's got tubs labelled. Beautiful.
Yeah, I have deep respect for people whose brains work in that way.
Same.
And I have like reverence for it. I think it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I am finding it, like Jessamy, to reiterate Jessamy's point, like actually so validating to hear someone just owning their mess, because I feel like I've become very apologetic for it. And like creativity does need structure and construct, like it absolutely does. But I think I've almost like taken that, like the flip side and tried to like micromanage and organize and control the process. And you're like, sometimes it's just a fucking mess.
Yep. But I've got the, like I can be a mess in the studio. At home, there's rules. So
Yeah.
and that's why there was that, the choice to
Yes.
go over studio.
Yeah.
It's also a separation from work and home, like work life. Like, you've got a house. Otherwise, you just switched on all the time.
Have you always had that, like separating spaces from, because when your life and your business and your partner works with you, there's got to be...
It took, I want to say it was probably about three and a half years into me starting out before I got my first little studio. And that was probably when I couldn't even been longer. It was when the resin came. So it was fine with the paper, and that was in a room, like we'd have friends over, it would close the door. But then the resin started to take up the kitchen.
And if you're going to insist on exploding resin, then...
So obviously, working with resin fumes, and then, back in the early days, there was no health and safety for me. It was just, let's do it. And then my partner would, come home from work, and being an ex-chef, the kitchen...
Oh, no.
I bet he loved
I hated it. And then there was the words of, hey, I hear there's, like I lived down in Torquay at that point. There was like, hey, I hear there's, these studios where lots of artists are going. So why don't you suss it out? So I did that. So,
Do you find it quite helpful sharing studio space that's close to other artists, or is that irrelevant for you? Like, could it be a room anywhere, or is there something about having that energy around you that you find quite helpful?
I've done both. So I've been exposed to kind of start off by myself. I think the thing is when you do go out on your own, there's and you are, working from home, there's such a sense of loneliness. Like it was a shock for me going from like a corporate environment, catching up with people for cups of teas and, the morning tea break. Loved it. People bring biscuits and then you get home and you're by yourself and it's just...
Just eating biscuits alone.
Yeah,
Feels really different.
Where's my Arnott's cream selection?
I'll make a cuppa. And it's like, and it does think that, I'm a social butterfly, so it's kind of like, it was a bit hard for me. Like I was starving myself of, is it attention or social interaction? And, my partner will get home from work and I'm like, how was your day? What was going on? And be like, it was terrible. I'm having wine. And I'll be like, okay, but, tell me more. Like a happy puppy seeing someone when they come home from work. So, and it was mentally healthy for me to go to a shared community to then meet others. And that, also sparks, those conversations of creativity and, you expose, to people's like successes and hardships as well. So, I really liked it, but I'm now back. I've moved out of Torquay and now I live in Colac. So I've got my own studio, but now I have a team. So I still have that, the social interaction. So I know, how was your day? How was your weekend? Blah, 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 blah. So I've still got that. And it's probably just on a different level, but I definitely recommend being around others is probably, it's just good mentally.
Yeah. It's something that it's always difficult to find the balance, isn't it? Between, like, I like to work, like I couldn't work in a shared space, but also I miss people terribly if I'm not around them. So it's finding the ways that work for you to be able to kind of have
Double-edged
both.
sword, isn't it? It's just,
Yeah. Speaking of like a different type of collaboration, I'm quite interested to hear a bit more about the brand collaborations that you've done.
Yes.
And I don't know, just I guess like how the fuck does that work? Like what happens? How does it start? Tell me everything.
There's so many ways collabs can happen, and because I've got a few under my belt now, so it's so many different ways. There's just chatting to people. sharing common interests, or I suppose. Like one example, like I've done a range of brooches with a company called Oswalder, and I met them at a market, and I was actually, I'd set my stall up and I was walking around and I was like, wow, these are awesome. Everything had a little story that was really whimsical, really spoke to me, and then I started engaging with the owners and going, this is, I think what you're doing is amazing, and then the next day they came up and said, Pete, would you like to do a collaboration? We think your work's amazing as well, and it will translate really well. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. I had no idea. I wasn't familiar with the brooch industry at all until it launched, and they crashed my website. I had brooch industry is insane.
Wow.
It's amazing. They're amazing.
Wow.
Amazing followers. So it's been a really good, and that collaboration just started with just a simple communication of, I really like what you do.
It's so cute. It's like a first date.
Yeah.
It's like asking someone out, like, I've noticed you're around. I think you're cute. Like, are you going to do this?
I like your style. Yeah. So it's like there's many, and there's other ways. Like, I'll be on the computer and, the 9 to 5 hustle, and then an email will drop in and I'll be kind of, about doing a collab, and then, things can go from there. So there's many different ways, but like a lot of the ones that of my favourites are the ones that have just sparked just from simple conversation, meeting people. Sometimes it's been intentionally, sometimes it hasn't been. Like I've been in in a social event and just started talking to someone, and they happen to be the owner of a business, and it just goes from there. So I think it's just being, just on a day-to-day, just being pleasant and friendly and, interested in people.
Yeah. I think also there can be, and maybe it's different depending on what kind of level's not the right word, what stage in your career you're at. But sometimes we can feel, particularly as people in Australia, I think, that tall poppy thing of I don't want to talk about myself. But if you're not out there talking to people about your work and what it is you do, how are they going to know who you are and what you do?
I'm the worst at talking about myself, showing what I do. It's normally I we might leverage my partner, and he'll go get out Instagram and go, this is what we do. So
what a dream team.
I'm never
That's cute.
I'm just, when it comes to selling myself, I just kind of shrink. I'm I just get awkward. It's just in my little happy bubble, I just like to make shit and get on with my life. So doing that, when I'm put on the spot like that, I just kind of, I hate it, unless I'm drinking.
Yeah. I'm Pete Cromer, motherfuckers. Look at my birds. And again, very validating to think someone who's had so much success, and you've got such a recognisable style and brand that even for you it still has that icky feeling of it feels awkward.
Yeah, I think it's because it's just I don't want to feel it. Don't you know who I am? It's not I just get on.
Yeah,
just
of
get
course.
on with things.
It's also such a different skill set. It's the
Yes,
thing
it
that gets you the esteem is your aesthetic, your design, your style, your taste, all of these things. That's a completely different skill set to the ability to communicate that to a stranger on the spur of the moment, under pressure. These are just different jobs.
Yep.
And some people are lucky enough to happen to have both, but it's also fucking fine to not.
Yeah, I'm getting better at hustling in person. I'm better on email. I can just fire them.
Yeah.
I think you're removed, and I think people feel safer or more confident throwing emails when I'm doing negotiations or things. But in real life, I can kind of. Oh.
Yeah.
You say this, but you're going to be on stage later, so
Yeah.
But I've got safety numbers. So there's others on stage with me. It's not just me going. If I was just me, stun mullet, because there's 4 of us. It was, and we all know each other as well. So there's shared history amongst us. So we're all good.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Well, speaking of your panel, we should probably wind up and let you go and get prepared.
Thank you very much.
It was such an absolute delight chatting with you, Pete. Thank you so much for making the time to sit down with us, and we'll look forward to continuing to hang out. Yeah, and I'm a fan. Alice is just pointing to my. That's
great.
Point one on my notes was I'm a fan with 3 exclamation points.
Jessamy's clipboard. Just to remind yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for making this experience so, I suppose, easy and lovely. Like this is my first podcast, so I don't know. I could have just froze, and I didn't, and it was great. Thank you.
You're great at talking.
And also making art. Thank you.
Caffeine helps.
Pete. Cool.
So next up, we're going to chat to the amazing Shuh Lee, an artist, maker, designer working in Melbourne. Shuh, you work with beautiful colors, and the idea of joy and happiness and play is in all of your work. And we're both massive fans. So,
Thank you. Hello.
thanks for joining us. Thanks for agreeing to come chat. And yeah, we could start in so many directions, but I guess I'd love to just start with your process. Actually, just start about your making and why you make what you make. And do you start with drawing? Are you someone who carries like a sketchbook around with you, or where do your ideas come from?
Everywhere, actually. I love observing. So, even this morning coming to the city on the train, I just have to stop looking at my phone, and I just want to look at every single detail, what everyone's doing, what everyone's wearing. And yes, I think for me, getting ideas is like an everyday thing. Yes, I have been carrying a notebook because I realized I have to just jot it down, because as I grow older, I keep forgetting things.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be so sad if I actually miss out on an idea, even if it seems silly. So nowadays, I do keep a habit of carrying a notebook and just draw and sketch or write, or even on my phone, just put on some small notes just to remind myself, because it's a busy life these days. We work and have things and chores to do, so we do forget. So I think this is how I kind of start, getting ideas and talk to friends, getting just talking through the idea with them. Do you think this is nice, silly kind of thing? But then after that, I'll work. I'll go back to my studio. I have my little bubble, and that's usually at night when it's quiet, and then I'll start playing. And that's how I get, ideas and flowing.
Yeah. I'm fascinated by how for different people you have your different magic time. So for me, it's really early in the morning. For my husband, it's late at night. Just that, when you can get in, your own little bubble and your little flow where it's this is my secret time.
Yeah, it's really important. I don't know. I tried, waking up early in the morning and trying to work, and I can't. I just get distracted with so many things, the noise outside, mowing, and I just can't. And then, the moment I'm at night, I just work better. So I figure out, okay, this is how I work best.
How many hours do you have in you, in one evening? Because I find for me, I can push through to maybe 2.5 hours, maybe 3 on a good day. If I keep working past a certain point, I just completely mess up everything good that happened before that. Do you have a set time that you like to work, and kind of what is your kind of creative bubble look like? Do you have any rituals?
I love rituals. Okay. But not really rituals, just something that makes me comfortable in my own space. So it's always after dinner, finish, I like to work, get ideas and kind of work on prints, usually at night at home. And it's after dinner, shower, everything's done. I don't have anything to do but in my comfy clothes, and then that's it. And music, or sometimes a really good food cooking show playing in the background, and warm water, a cup of warm water.
Oh, yeah?
And then, then it starts. But it's usually quite late at night, when about maybe 10 p.m. onwards, and then I don't have a time frame. I tell myself just to be healthier, don't go over a certain time. But yes, I just let myself play until I'm get tired, and then I stop. Amazing. Yeah.
And so this is in your home?
My home studio. I do have 2 studios. One is to do messier things on where I put all my products, and then home it's where it's just more digital work or painting something. So it's good to separate, because I used to have a space and it was really hard to have a work-life balance, as you all know. Like,
Honestly, it's so interesting you say work-life balance. I think every creative that we've interviewed, that phrase is such a central, it's like an ongoing thing. It's never resolved.
No,
like
work is life for me.
Yeah.
But it helps to not have the things readily for you at home, because I'm going to reach out and pack an order at 12 midnight. So I find that really helpful now. Like, I move the things I can't do it, so that means I have to do something else which doesn't involve, working till so late. Like, at least I'm actually, it's good that I've just moved all the manual admin work out of the way. And what I can do from home now is design, which I love. I love designing from home. It's my comfort in my space.
Yeah. Something that really struck me looking at your website preparing for today was it you said that your work is all about making people happy and that all of your work is happily made with time, care and love, which I thought, and you can see the joy in everything that you do. But I imagine that like element of, if you want to call it self-care or self-management or whatever, being in the space that you love, where you feel most comfortable, would be really important when you are creating stuff.
Yes.
That is being made with love, right? Because you can feel the difference. It's like when someone cooks you dinner, like your grandma cooking you dinner as opposed to getting Macca's, you can taste the difference and you can feel the difference in the artwork, I think, too. So I imagine, like looking after yourself so you can set yourself up to be able to make it with love must be very
giving
important.
yourself time. I think if I don't do it, I'll be another person, this is the best version of me when I am just in my zone and enjoying and loving what I do. It's like, this is what I'm meant to do. So I just think it's really good for me to keep practicing.
Yeah. Have you always had such a clear sense of that? Like, did you know from when you were like a kid that this would be what your life looked like?
No, but of course, no. I've never, imagined. Growing up, no one told you like, hey, you could be an independent small business owner. This occupation never existed in our list of occupation that you could choose. I probably written something like lawyer.
Yeah,
because I wanted to fit in. But what I know is I love art when I was young. I love playing and I love art classes. Ever since I was young, I just love like art projects given by school. I would take home, I would spend time. And I just remember, taking my time doing all these things, but I really enjoy it. And I guess that's like something I remember. And then just throughout high school, I just love the art subject. And it's something I take seriously. I know other people they focus on maths and science, but for me, it's like art was a very serious subject. Like I must do well, that kind of thing. So I think from then, I realized that actually I have to do something creative in my life because, it's something that I love. And I guess I'm very grateful to be where I am because I'm so glad I found a space and what I'm meant to do after, trying... after uni, after studies, I try to get jobs and, do what other people do. And then, I just realized that this is not for you, this is not for you. But I keep trying and trying. And I am so glad to be on the road I am now. It is something, because I don't keep searching. I just concentrate and do what I do. So I guess it's a good feeling. It's a right thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are searching for that feeling, that sense, that quiet sense of knowing that you're doing what you're here to do.
What feels right to me. I think, I tried like many jobs here and there, and it just didn't feel right. So I thought, you know what? I think I read a quote somewhere. It's like, your perfect job is something you build yourself or you give it to yourself or something. Like the ideal job will never exist, but you just gotta make it happen or something like that. I remember it was a vague book and I was like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I need to create this role for myself.
So on that point, you know how to make art. It's something that's always been important to you. And then you have this realization that like, you are going to make this job. Like it doesn't exist, but you're going to make this job. And with that comes all of the other labor around like being a business owner, all of the logistics, all of the admin. Like, how did you find that? How did you learn that? Was that something that you found to be, did it come quite naturally to you, or has it been...
No, I'll just shake my head like big shake.
The look on your face, you're like, hell no.
No, I think you just learn as you go. Like everything, there's no like guidebook. Like, oh yeah, you need to learn how to reply to emails. You need how to do your accounts or things like that. You just learn as you go. Ask around, and things doesn't work out. You know, you ask friends for help or advice. This is how I think I keep growing and learning, because I know for the fact that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
So you always search help, and then because I want to do this for a long time, so I try to keep learning and try to improve what I do. So yeah, the admin side, it just comes naturally, and I told myself, you just gotta love it. You gotta learn how to love it. Otherwise, it'll be
Good
like
reframe.
Yeah. Otherwise, it'll be like, oh, torture. You feel like this is so torturous. Why am I putting myself? But I'm trying to learn it, and I'm like, yep, this should be something that I would learn to enjoy. It's part of it. I've just got to accept it.
Yeah. That's a great mindset to have. I'm going to keep your voice in the back of my head next to my mic. Fucking invoices.
Yeah.
No, you love this. It's part of it. You love it.
Invoices. Yeah, I learned to love it now, like by balancing things, and I love putting invoices now. Like, ooh, it's enjoyable to me. Like, don't know. I just learned how. I just find a way to enjoy it in some ways, some funny ways. Like still, yeah.
You're an inspiration.
Yeah, I'm like, as you're speaking, I'm like trying to just absorb it. It's because it's true. I think I don't know. I feel like I've fought against that for so many years. And at the end of the day, if you're going to be making creative work in the world, you're going to have to know how to do that. So you can resist it and fight and try rebel and make it.
To do it.
You still have to do it. And you're just making it worse for yourself. You're the only person you're making it worse for.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so true.
It's very, like, it's an important part of business. You have to do it, then you gotta learn to do it. And of course, one day you might have someone to help you, but meanwhile, you have to learn. And I think it's good to learn it, because then you won't be like clueless when something happens.
Yeah.
If you have to take care of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing you mentioned, Shuh, was around like asking for help and asking other people. And it was really gorgeous when you came down into our podcast HQ for the day in the green room here at the Edge, seeing you interact with Pete Cromer, who we interviewed just before you. And you've obviously got a lovely relationship or relationships that you formed through market stalls or other things. I'd love to hear a bit more about like that, the role of community in your life and your practice, and how that sort of played out for you.
The longer I'm doing this, the more important it feels, because it can be a very lonely thing. Like, I do most of my work myself. I could just be in the studio, but actually things can be better once you have people around you, moral support, and it just gives me strength. Sometimes when you feel like you're in alone, you just, have this problem boiling in your head. But when you talk to someone with like-minded, or a maker or a studio friend, it just helps me to level things and lighten up the weight on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Just getting help and advice, it's really helpful. So yeah, I think it has played a very important role in my life. Like, just to have community, I've realized that it's so important. I never did. I thought, when I didn't live close to the city back then. I was living a bit further, and I was practicing mostly from home, and I felt like the world was so small. But when I actually moved, towards the inner city where I'm at now, and I have a studio where I share with some friends, I feel like, things are more possible, and my world is bigger, and it's healthier for me in the long run.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, stress, everything, emotionally, you can share the load, and I think, things are more possible when you work with other people, I think.
It's a big part of why we make this podcast is for the same reason, for everyone who's sitting alone with an idea that they want to make a real thing in the world, is like to create that kind of community of makers and hear that everyone's learning and making it up and like finding
just to have
their
a
way.
conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes just want a conversation.
We need people as people.
I just want to talk.
Yeah, it's
And
so
then,
important.
solution is so like,
Yeah.
it's only, like you'll be surprised the solution is actually really easy.
Yeah.
But you just like boil up the problem.
Exactly.
It's like that thing where you say something out loud for the first time. Like it's been an issue that in your head that feels really complex, and then you say it out loud and it doesn't even need a response from someone. Just the act of saying it, you're like, oh, okay, I just solved it.
Exactly. The moment you just have to say it out loud or say it to someone. And it's like, oh.
Apparently in the tech industry, they call that rubber ducking someone, and they have like little rubber ducks on their desk, and they like, that's part of the idea, is like you solve your own problem by explaining it to someone else. So if you explain to the duck.
Oh, okay. Where does the duck come into it? Okay.
You know how wise ducks are. But yeah, so they have the little rubber duck there, and they explain their problem to the duck, and it'll help them find the solution. And it's super cute. But there was a little part of me that was like, but what about people?
Yeah, but the rubber duck doesn't respond. Yeah. And I want response.
But yeah, I mean, I get like it shows up across industry, and that's a different kind of creativity, right? But definitely like the importance of a sounding board and a safe space to kind of work it out outside of your brain.
And where are the places that you found that community, Shuh? Obviously, you've got fellow market stall holders, but do you also work in a collaborative space or networking? I don't know. Where do you find your people?
Yes, of course, through markets is how like you find like-minded friends. You see each other again and again, and then you end up just being friends. And then just keeping in touch, of course, like via text or anything. And my studio space, definitely. I have a few. It's a few makers share a space, and we see them from time to time. And I feel like, it's like my little comfort, my home outside home, like a second family kind of thing.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Like to have a creative family is.
Yeah, you have to have
Yeah.
You know, your real family and friends, and then like creative family, because you need help from time to time and moral support and so on. So
That's right. And it's a specific thing that you only share with people who've gone through something similar, right? Like
because you tell them they'll get it straight away. But if you tell like, you know, your partner, they might not get exactly how you feel. But if you tell them, make it like, oh yeah, say no more. You know, I understand. Do this, do that. Don't do this, and something like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same as like, you know, I've got like my gym friends, and I wouldn't go to like my dad and be like, oh yeah, so I PR'd my clean and jerk this morning. He'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I don't care.
Yes.
Well, speaking of community, we should probably let you get back out there and get into it, Shuh, but we're very much looking forward to seeing you on the panel this afternoon. Thank you so much for making the time. You're just a joy.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, Shuh. Welcome, Esther Sandler from Togetherness Design. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. Well, I am the founder and designer at Togetherness, and I'm also a textile designer. I do some freelance work and other creative projects, and I'm also teaching as well into textile design at RMIT University.
Oh, wow.
That's so many things.
So many things.
I'm like, are we casual about that? That's so many fucking things.
I'm really fascinated by textile design, mainly because I have no fucking idea how it works. But just from it at its like simplest process form, I'd love to hear a bit about your process, or, you know, how it works from concept to becoming an actual thing, or how you think about pattern.
Yeah. I'm so passionate about textile design. I think originally, back when I finished high school, I studied fashion, and there was a slight textile element. And when I found, you know, that textile design component really clicked with me. And even now, like thinking back to when I was small, I would see like tiles on the floor and kind of, I don't know, I've always been attracted to patterns. So I'd like, always thinking about pattern and really excited and passionate about it. But in terms of the process of creating textiles, it's a craft. I think, there's a lot of programs out there that can help you whip up a design really quickly. But, there's a true process behind it and a real tradition behind textile design as well. And with my process, I'm always trying to create work by hand, so always starting with hand-illustrated work and trying to impart that handmade feeling into my work, even if it's, digitally touched up or digitally printed. That connection with traditional textile design is really important for me.
With so thinking about working by hand on your designs and kind of bringing the human back into that, like human touch, is that something, because your designs are also, you work so much with nature as well as like a recurrent theme. Like are these themes that have kind of followed you throughout your life, or is this a moment, or how do you think about like what you draw?
Yeah, definitely. I think you you kind of understand how I work. Nature is a huge kind of perennial theme for me. Like it's always there, and something I, in my life as well, go back to nature physically to kind of clear my head or kind of get back in touch with nature, get back in touch with who I am and what's important to me. I find it also a constant inspiration, just kind of seeing how things change throughout the year, through the seasons, also seeing things worldwide, like different kind of botanical inspirations around the world. But as you said about that kind of hand imprinting the human within work, that's definitely something I'm trying to do. I think, digital or technology, digital printing within textile design has made it very easy to create work and to print fabric, but I'm still always trying to kind of do a throwback to, people from the past and the textile traditions, how work has always been made, and show that, behind the scenes there's a person making this work and not a machine. Yeah.
It does allow for a different sort of connection to something, doesn't it, if you can feel the person behind it? Like I've noticed even with like illustration work that I do with typography, so I've created a few fonts from my handwriting, but the difference between me using my handwriting font and me handwriting it has a completely different feeling. Like you can't feel the human behind it anymore with the font.
Yeah, I think those small imperfections, I guess, and irregularities that come with handmade work are really important, and they're the little kind of bits of evidence, I guess, that, there's a human here. And I love, that idea of imperfections kind of being a marker of this is made by a person.
Yeah. And also that idea of it ties in such an interesting way to this idea of a pattern, which you were speaking about earlier, and like a pattern is repetition.
Yes.
But once you put the human into it, it's like repetition with difference. And our eyes, the repetition is what makes our eyes notice the moments that are different, and that kind of those destabilizing what might be mistakes but actually become style.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never thought of that before.
Me either. Happened in real time.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, that's so interesting. I guess like my life is all about this idea of pattern and repetition, but I'm trying to inject little, moments in there or things that maybe are not quite right, or kind of hold your attention a little bit.
Yeah. How do you hold back? Like how do you stop yourself from overworking something or kind of fixing a thing to the point at which it stops feeling alive? Like how do you know when to walk away?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I even have an answer. I can definitely overthink things. Like maybe it's just a feeling and having experience as well, creating the work that I do. I can tell when I've gone too far, and maybe that's the cue that I need to unwind a little bit and take a few steps back to maybe a place that I was originally.
I struggle with that.
Yeah, I think many creatives struggle with that, right? It's
particularly when there's other work out there that you're kind of, you can't help but be influenced by what's going on around you. And, you know, there's the people that are very precise and, can do amazing, for me, it's like amazing botanical illustrations. And I know I can't do that. I don't know, but I still can't help but maybe, think about other people's work as I'm working and, question myself a lot.
Well, you're on the right podcast for that.
I definitely resonate with the name of the podcast. I'm like, that's me.
Unfortunately, it's a very large club. But something that I thought was interesting from reading through your website a little bit was two things that seem kind of related, and one's like taking inspiration from the small things, and the other is creating products for every day. And those things seem to be kind of intertwined for me, that it's both the inspiration and the output are sort of these kind of small, like minutiae of every day, but actually like the beauty that's within that, you know, flowers, bugs, whatever you're seeing in your day-to-day, but also the beauty that can be brought to simple objects and fabrics, that they seem to sort of play off each other a little bit. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really, nice connection. And, I guess I'm very drawn to kind of what's happening around me in my daily life, and I'm a passionate gardener as well, so I think that's kind of where that botanical influence kind of comes through as well. Like I see things changing throughout the seasons, and I'm a homebody as well. You know, I love kind of hunkering down at home, like in winter when it's raining, kind of cuddling up on the couch and having a cup of tea and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where I'm drawn to, I guess. And I guess subconsciously I just tend to focus on that sort of thing. And I think, celebrating and kind of bringing to life these smaller elements throughout the day, or smaller rituals, I think is, it just makes those times more exciting, or a more special kind of occasion. Yeah.
How do you think about the fact that you have so many facets to your creative practice? Like, is that something that you've actively created and that feeds you, or is it like a bit of a necessary evil, or is it both of those things?
Yeah, I think it's kind of both of those things. Like, the downside is that it can be quite hard to manage all the different elements going on at once. But I do know, like, if I stop and think about it, I know that the reason why I kind of have different facets of my career, I guess, is because, it's really important to me. I think if I spent my entire career just focusing on creating product, for example, for Togetherness, there would be something missing there. Whereas being able to kind of be involved in exhibitions and creating work more for myself, there's a really important element there that kind of fulfills me in a way that creating product for Togetherness doesn't. And then teaching as well, it's a totally different way for me to apply my creative skills. I find I get a lot of there's a lot of positives that I get out of that, not kind of using my creative brain in the same way, but still being able to, meet the next generation of designers potentially, and kind of pass along my skills. Yeah.
How long have you been teaching for?
So I just teach casually, but I have been teaching for 7 years now, I think.
Oh, okay, it's a long time.
So just back into, it's the course that I studied originally, textile design at RMIT, and back into that course.
What was that like when you first, like your first day of teaching the course that you studied?
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Like imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm getting better at it. I still kind of feel like that today. I think, I'll always feel like that. That's just a part of my personality, the uncertainty. But definitely I felt like it was written all over my face that people could see, I don't have experience. I don't know what I'm doing. But I have actually spoken to, I still see students around that I taught. And one student did tell me I taught her in that first year, and she said she didn't realise it was like my first class, my first time teaching. Yeah. So I was like, that's pretty cool.
I guess that's the thing as well, is like you're in a class with a group of people that everyone's in their bubble of feeling like the spotlight is on them. And like for those students, they were sitting there going like, oh my God, do I look cool? Do I look cool enough to be in here? Is that person looking at me? Like they're not even questioning you or your place there. But I mean, it's the most relatable feeling.
Yeah, totally. I guess that's a really relatable feeling just in general working in the creative industries, like when there's self-doubt, which comes in all the time, and you're comparing yourself to other people. Yeah, sometimes I sit back and think like, everyone's feeling the same things. We're all we have imposter syndrome. We're all like insecure about what we're doing at times, questioning what we're doing. And as dark as it sounds, it brings comfort to know like everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah.
We're all just trying to figure out how to live, how to work.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the more we share, the less alone we feel in that, even though your struggles will look different from mine, will look different from Alice's, just knowing that like no one has solved anything.
And
no one has solved for life or like solved for career as yet that we know.
But it will never be solved. So that's like a nice comfort as well.
Exactly. There's no such thing.
And we'll always feel like this to some degree. Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day because I was like, why is this a podcast, not an Instagram feed or whatever? Like, and I think the idea that I kind of came to, and I haven't said this out loud, so maybe it doesn't make any sense, but you guys tell me what you think, is like exactly that. Like it is such a shared feeling, but putting out an image of that, like putting out a photo of a design that sucks or some kind of image of us fucking up feels so permanent, and that's like a very icky, difficult thing to share and put out into the world because it feels like evidence of a failure, versus a conversation which by its nature is like a fleeting, moving thing. You can kind of like share more and be more vulnerable about those parts of the process.
We're recording this, right?
Yeah, but there's just more context. I don't know. It feels like there's more movement in it.
Yeah, and it feels definitely more personal and relatable. I can't imagine, something like this having the same impact if it was a reel on Instagram, for example.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've got more questions, Alice, but Esther's got to get to prepare for her panel. I know. This has been the most brutal thing about today because we've met so many wonderful, creative, exciting, talented people, and we have to keep our chats much shorter than usual. So, maybe there'll be a whole series of post Creative Business Summit interviews where we get to have proper full-length chats. But maybe just as a way of wrapping up our chat, because you were going to be on the community panel this afternoon, maybe if you could just give us like a 30-second, 1 minute thing about the role of community in your life and work and where you sort of found your people.
Yeah, I think that idea of community and collaborating with other creatives, it's definitely pushed me in directions that I would never have thought possible. It's a really important thing to have in your creative practice, to be able to share skills with other people, to see other ways of doing things, to attempt projects that you could never do by yourself as well. And I think if you look at the creatives around you as community and not as competitors, that's something we're talking about today. I think that's a really great mindset to kind of get into. We're all in the same boat, just trying to kind of make it however we can. There's always going to be people who do similar things to you, but just know like when we support each other, I think it creates so much more of a positive feeling.
Yeah.
And that can be really beneficial for your personal work and also just your personal life. I've met so many great friends through the markets and just through collaborating as well. So it's a really great way to find your people and make friends as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That community, not competition, is a really powerful idea.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Esther. We'll let you go and get ready, and we look forward to hearing more from you very soon.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Imposter Syndrome Club. Please follow us wherever you find your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra kind, rate and review. Or if you got any insights or value from this, share with a friend.
You can also find us on Instagram at ImposterPod or online at impostersyndromeclub.com.